This is Patrick from WSOU 89.5 FM, your home for the loudest rock, and I am here with Levi from Miss May I. How you doing?
Good, man. Good. We're just got North Carolina, left Florida. It's not sweaty anymore, so we're happy.
Yeah, fantastic. So, you guys recently released Unconquered, which is your first new song in almost 5 years. That was a few months ago. What made you guys want to get back into the studio and record some new music after all this time?
So actually, we were the whole reason for the time frame was just honestly the pandemic. So we were at the end of an album cycle originally on Shadows Inside, and we started working on new music, and then the world stopped. So we really had like 2 years to work on new music. And that's what we've been doing over the pandemic. So we didn't really do any live streams or merch drops or anything. We just wrote and enjoyed the break of touring. And now that it's all back, the releases and everything we've been working on over the whole pandemic is getting released. So, and Unconquered was sort of a summary of all the new music, because it's mainly about like the just like the sorrows and the lows everyone went through with everything through the pandemic. Because I know every single person that we at least know went through that, but we all made it out on the other end, and a lot of people better than they did before the pandemic. So that's what Unconquered's really all about. It's just sort of reaching the limit of thinking that we're not going to make it, but at the very end, we made it through, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I definitely hear all of that. So let's just rewind for a second. I know you guys formed while you guys were still in high school. How did you guys get started writing songs together?
Yeah, so we were just high school friends. Like, we started this band when we were 14. We honestly liked skateboarded, just for punk little kids. And then when the street lights came on and we couldn't be outside anymore, we're like, we could jam music in a basement. Like, you play guitar, you're drums and a marching band, you do this. So we just sort of pieced it together. I originally was like playing bass. I sang, and then we like learned Under Oath, and there was some screams. We're like, oh, this is cool. Like, maybe we can do heavier songs. And then the rest was history. We just kept, when we've been friends and jamming together ever since.
Yeah, so I know that's how a lot of high school bands get started, but the fact that you guys have, been able to perform for all this time since high school and stay together and just keep rocking, that's really awesome. And you just touched on, you mentioned Under Oath, but what were some of your influences during this time as you were first forming the band?
Well, when we first started, it's a lot different than who we are now, which I think will surprise people. Like, when our first covers and stuff, you have to think of the time as well. This was like 2007, 2008. At that time, it was like Hawthorne Heights, Taking Back Sunday, stuff like that. And there was like little background screams. And then Under Oath came around, like, wow, there's a lot more screaming. And then we found Kill Switch, and then we found As Lay Dying, and then Parkway. And then you're like, oh, okay, it is heavier and heavier and heavier. And then we found our sound. Well, actually, I think right before we started writing our own music, it was like Black Dahlia and As Blood Runs Black and all that kind of stuff. And then it was just like, wow, like there's some heavy stuff we can do. And then it made us better musicians too, because obviously that stuff's a lot harder to play. So we just would sit in basements and be like, how do they play that fast? We got to figure it out. So, and this is pre-social media. Like, all there was MySpace. So we weren't sitting on our phones all the time. So all we did was just literally get out of school and jam until we passed out, and just do that every day through high school.
Yeah, definitely. And I also read that while you were still in high school, you released some of your first demos in 2007 and 2008, and your first full-length record, Apologies Are for the Weak, that was released in 2009. What was it like recording the music that you wrote in high school in an actual studio?
It was crazy. So, like, at the time, it was all an experiment, really, because it was, oh, we're going to go to college. Like, this band thing's fun, but we're going to go to college. And then our record deal came right before we graduated. So we're like, maybe we should try this out. And like, we had to obviously convince our parents. None of us were old enough to sign the record deal, so our parents had to sign it for us. And that was like nerve-wracking. And then when it happened, they wanted the album to come out that summer after we graduated, so we had to record it while we're going through our senior year of high school. And the studio was like, I think like 4 or 5 hours away from the school. So what we ended up doing, we had a month to do the album. So what we ended up doing was, we get out of school, drive to Indiana, we record until like 4 or 5 in the morning, and then one person would take a shift, drive us all back while everybody slept, and we'd go to school for a normal day, and like sleeping in classes and like the cool thing was our teachers and everyone was like very supportive. They were like, "This is so cool, you guys are doing this. Like, sleep in the back of class, but get your homework done." So the school really helped us, which was incredible. But yeah, it was a really hard month of just going back and forth. And then on the weekends and then at this time, our band was also like blowing up on MySpace. So like the popularity was just getting crazy too. It was a crazy senior year. It was very, very long. But yeah, we did the whole thing. And I think it came out actually, but right before we graduated. So it was fun to like be in class, and our teachers had like apologies for the week posters hung up through the school, and they're like, "We Miss Massey these out," and you're like, "This is crazy." So the school actually helped us put a show on to help us pay for our first trailer. So we like put our own show on. The school sponsored it, and like we got to keep all the money from the doors, and it paid for our first like vehicle to tour.
That's so awesome. Now, a lot of bands, they wait like, yeah, I mean, not wait, they work very hard for it, but they got to be patient and wait like years and years for that kind of support and a record deal and a whole high school full of people supporting you. What was it like having all that while you were still just a senior in high school?
It was surreal. Like we were just riding this wave, sort of. It was like, and I don't think we really understood what was happening. It was just bigger than what we thought because we're from a small town. So when we put our songs up that made us like viral, we were getting a couple hundred plays a day, which was like still really big for a big small town or for a small town metal band in Ohio. And then one night we were getting 200,000 plays a day, and then it stayed at 200,000 forever. And then we're just like, um, I don't think we could comprehend that there was that many people listening to the band, and that it was just like a wildfire. But yeah, I don't know. It was crazy. I think the craziest thing was leaving high school, never playing out of Ohio, and our first show was like in uh, Arizona, and they packed it out. The venue packed out. They were singing. It was just like, what? I'm like, we're thousands of miles away from home, and they know who we are. I was like, this is something's crazy. Uh, and yeah, I don't know. It was just surreal. I don't think it's still hit us yet. The 2 years off, I sort of let it hit me, and I was like, wow, we got this is really a blessing that we get to do this, but it's still pretty surreal.
Yeah, it sounds super surreal. So over the next 5 years, you guys followed up Apologies Are for the Weak with Monument, At Heart, and Rise of the Lion. How did your sound evolve during this time as you became more experienced in songwriting, recording, and touring, kind of becoming professional musicians?
I think that just knowing our instruments better, that was our biggest like evolution. Because with playing like from Apologies for the Week, obviously we only played on the weekends, so we just made crazy songs, and like our talent was only we only brushed it up every few days a week on shows. And then after doing our first tour and being like, oh, people like this kind of stuff, maybe I should get better at this instrument because they like this live, because we didn't know that. So then you learn that, and then you tour with other bands, and you're like, oh, I learned how to like scream a little higher. I think on the next album, where I learned this arpeggio, like maybe I can add that next album. So touring with bands and just learning what people liked live, at least that's what we focus on as a band, is like we've always been a live band. Like obviously the albums, I hope they're awesome, but we write them for a live show. So, and I think ever since we started and started seeing that on tour, that's where our sort of writing has went. But and then just doing it every day. Like we used to tour 9 months a year for a decade, and you just get better at. It's just like any athlete at their sport. You just get better doing it every night.
Yeah, and I've talked about that with a lot of people, how I think that really makes metal unique, how the live show is kind of at the bulk of a lot of songwriting. What aspects of the live show did you uh, experience at this time and learn and incorporate into your songwriting?
Well, our big thing, at least our first album is so intense. It's like so back to back and like which is cool, but like live, it's almost too much. It's like overwhelming. It's not really like breathing parts or people that like absorb it or a cool light part. So like that's what we really learned was like, oh, maybe that beat down or that like break should be a little bit longer on the next album because they jump and we only give them 10 seconds to jump. We should give them 40 seconds to jump next time. Or like, because like I said, we only knew our band as like a basement band on the first album. So we didn't know what people do. It just sounded cool. like this sounds cool. We don't know how people are going to react because we just never played shows like that. So
Do you think there's any basement band aspects still in your music?
Oh, for sure. I think that biggest part is our band's chemistry. Like that's why I don't think I could ever fill in or play somebody else because like there's like we don't even need a metronome. I think one thing is we've played together for so long. The other thing is just being friends and learning our instruments together instead of like learning them and then coming together. We learned how to do this together. Our chemistry is awesome because it feels like it's just one like one body playing. Like I don't even feel like I'm playing with drums or guitars. It's just like we're all just one like mesh. And if somebody messes up, we can like look and like have complete conversations with our eyes and just be like, okay, I understand. Like because we've just done it so long. It's cool.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And your new single, Unconquered, that we mentioned before, is the first new music since your last full length album, Shadows Inside. And that's arguably your most successful record. The title track, Under Fire and Lost in Gray, were all from this album. And that's always at the top of the streaming
Yeah.
list and things like that. What about Shadows Inside, the songwriting, the recording, the production, do you think made it your most successful record?
This was the first album that we separated instruments and vocals. So we instead of everyone coming together and spending the time together, which like is a good time, we sort of broke away. We wrote the album and then broke away to where when we were finishing the album that there was an entire instrumental group, like guitars, drums, bass, they were all doing their own thing with their own producer. And then there's an entire other producer just doing vocals and melodies with me and Ryan. So that was the first time. So there's two producers like making this monster instead of like one guy who's really good at instruments and okay at vocals, one guy that's like good at both. We just try to be like, let's get the best of both. And that's what we did on the new, like Unconquered. We used two producers again. There's a vocal producer and an instrument producer, and we just mesh them together.
And what was that experience like recording your vocals with one producer and the band recording with another producer? Was it very different from when you recorded Apologies Are for the Weak, or were there any
Oh,
similarities?
yeah. Yeah, because it does suck a little bit because you're not in the same room while they're doing instruments. So if I have a vocal note or like, hey, this would help me, we have to like email it, send it to the guys wherever they are in the world. They have to re-record it, send it back to me. So like it takes a lot more time. So that does suck. Like in theory, the best thing would be to have like a huge studio and have everyone there at one time in different rooms. But that's just crazy right now, especially with the pandemic. Maybe one day, maybe the next album, but uh, that's the hardest thing. It's just there is some lag time, and it does take a lot longer because of going back and forth because I'm not in the same room, and it does suck. But I think the outcome, it's worth the time because it's also any extra time's nice too because the longer you can listen to a song, the more you can really like pick it apart and make it better.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. But you mentioned that it sucks, but over the past few months, obviously, you've had the chance to play with the band. You're on tour right now. You're going on tour with All That Remains in support of the 15th anniversary of Fall of Ideals. What's it been like touring with All That Remains?
Oh, it's awesome. We used to go to our drummer Jared's house before Miss May was even a thing and just play Guitar Hero and play Six and all this stuff and be like, can you imagine if we were in a band? That'd be crazy. And now it's like, hey, what's up, Phil? Hey, you guys kill it tonight. Like, you're just hanging out with them and touring with them. And it's so surreal. And that album, I love that album. Like, when we got the email, I thought it was like, and that's our first tour back. Like, hey, guys, first tour back. Do you want to do this? I was like, oh, of course. Like, I would listen to that album every night. It sounds awesome. So, and then the Varials is great. I've heard a lot about Varials, so it's awesome seeing those guys, and they're incredible. And then Tala is like a beast of its own that I've never heard, and it's so exciting to watch that band because I've never heard anything like that before.
Yeah, we've been playing some of the new Talis stuff on SOU. I agree. It's definitely some wild stuff. And you just
The
mentioned,
show's even crazier.
yeah, yeah, I can imagine. And you just mentioned this is your first tour back, and it's with All That Remains and Burials and Talib. What's been your favorite part about getting back on the road?
Honestly, man, I just love the traveling aspect and meeting people. That's what we told. The show's obviously why we were here, but I love like for instance, there was people we got here at 11, and there's people camped out for to be the first in line, and like I love meeting those people. Like, hey, thanks for being here early. Like I'm about to go on a run, and I get to hear about their like, oh, we've seen you 8 times, and my daughter's seen you since she was 5. Like just all those stories are incredible, and then going to these cool cities. And I think my perspective changed since touring so long. Is now like when I get to these cities that we've been to a million times, I like explore. Like I wake up and just leave, and I just go and explore until sound check. And like I never used to be like that. So that's another thing I'm just like, I think because the pandemic took it away, I realized how fortunate we were that we get to do a cool city every day. And I was like, I'd never left the venue. I'm gonna walk away this time and go a few blocks and see what's going on. And and I've done that this whole tour, and it's been. I sort of don't want the tour to end because I'm like, damn, this is awesome. It's like a big vacation.
Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of musicians that, being on tour is weird because you're on tour for the concerts, but the concerts actually take up such a small portion of it. What kind of stuff you just touched on a little bit, exploring and things like that, but what kind of stuff have you been doing differently on this tour in between the shows when you have the most time?
So this tour is different. The band's changed a lot since the pandemic. So we're parents now. So this tour, my family's been out a few times. So I have like there's like a toddler on the tour and like wives. So we'll do museums and playgrounds, which is like funny for a metal band. Like we're at like a playground hanging, and then we go play this show and people beat the shit out of each other, and then we come back. And but yeah, the other thing I run every day, which I started during the pandemic. I'm on like I think today's 270 days straight. But I'll run right when I get to the venue, and to sort of calibrate my body and just to explore and keep my streak going. But that's been my like meditation thing every day, which really lets me see the city because that's the other crazy thing. We've played these venues so many times, and now I go on Google Maps and there's like a beautiful running trail right next to the venue, and I'm like, I've been here 10 times. I didn't even know there was a trail. So I take that trail and I see this beautiful place. So, and obviously venues are in great areas, so we sort of get spoiled because a venue's never really in the middle of nowhere. They do exist, but not usually.
Yeah, I know, plenty of venues like that, and I know that not only the bands are really excited to tour again, but I know that the fans are super psyched for their bands to be back on the road. How would you describe the fans at these concerts?
Dude, it's that you're exactly right. I feel like it was a toss up. It could have went really good. It could have went really bad, and it has went really good. It's excess. They're excited. Like no one. A lot of people have been just going to so many shows, but like yeah, I don't know. It's people are happy to be back, and you could just hear it in the crowd and see it in people's faces, like just how happy they are just to be out. And whether they're going to every show that week or this is their first show back since the pandemic, like everyone's just been it's awesome. It hasn't really been a cross-armed like jaded show, which I feel like right before the pandemic when it was like very oversaturated touring and people were like, oh, I've been to 40 shows this month, like play better. And you're just like, dude, I'm trying. Like, what do you want from me? And now people, they're just like, oh, I'm happy that there's a show at all happening because I remember there not being shows for a very long time.
Yeah, the concerts coming out right now are definitely nuts. And I wanted to ask a few questions that are kind of random, but they're some of our favorite questions to ask here at SOU. Number one, if the band wasn't called Miss May I, what would you think you'd be called?
We would have a way cooler name. I would have like something that would be sick on merch. Like, wait, what's one? Um, I would do like there's a band I think right now in Florida, and I would just take their name, Death Eater or something like, and it's like one word, like something like that, something that would just be the coolest T-shirt to wear around. Yeah, Death Eater. I would just pick that. Something just obscurely gnarly, because that's a hard thing now is that we have to explain to people we're a metal band because I think we sort of messed up naming ourselves. I'm like, just listen to it before you assume what we sound like.
Yeah, Death Eater sounds sick. Number two, if you could pick one Miss May I song to send out to aliens for them to listen to, which song would it be?
It would be on. It would, I, this isn't biased because we just released it, but it would be Unconquered for sure.
What
Yeah.
do you think that is?
So, I think it's the best. Obviously the best version of us. I know that's biased because it's the newest version, but it's. I think it's a good summary of what we bring to the table. That song has like everything that we do in one song, which I think is cool.
Yeah, I definitely hear that. So finally, what's next for Miss May I?
A lot. There's a lot of this whole year and next year is just like every month there's something big coming out. All the last 2-3 years of just hard work and working on new music and just being in our silence and retreat is finally like coming out. And there's a lot because we used to have a month to build this stuff up, and now we had 2 years to build it up. So there's layers and layers and layers of really cool stuff with new music, which I'm really excited.
Yeah, it sounds exciting. So, Levi, thank you for being here. Miss May I, Unconquered, out now. We're also spinning it on WSOU 89.5. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, guys, stay metal. Hopefully, I get to see you guys on the tour. If not, we'll be back soon. There's a lot of new music coming this year, so keep an ear out.
And where can we find you guys online?
Yeah, come check us out, missmaymusic.com. Everything's there. Yeah, like I said, just keep checking back. There's a lot coming in this year.
All right, Levi, thank you.
Anytime, man. Thank you.
This is Patrick from WSOU 89.5.